She thought a simple afternoon at the lake would be peaceful. Cars parked, fishing rods out, laughter echoing across the water. But one lock, one small turn of a key, shattered that calm. Suddenly, anger erupted, screams pierced the quiet, and a sense of power clashed with the law. What she didn't realize was that this wasn't just about a gate, or even a lake. It was about control, entitlement, and the dangerous illusions people cling to. But what happens when someone finally stands up, and the truth refuses to be ignored? It was a quiet Saturday morning at the private lake. The water shimmered under the sun, birds called across the trees, and the smell of pine filled the air. For years I had kept this land safe, a place where neighbors fished, families laughed, and the world felt simple. Most days passed without incident, a life measured in gentle ripples and soft footsteps along the shore. I never expected confrontation here. This was my space, my peace. But that morning, everything changed the moment she arrived. Karen, loud, demanding, convinced the rules didn't apply to her. Her guests followed, confident, entitled, laughing as if ownership could be taken by yelling. I didn't say anything yet. I just watched. What she thought was a harmless visit would soon become a collision of arrogance, law, and the truth she had never cared to see. The first click of the lock echoed louder than I expected. Metal grinding against metal, sliding shut. Suddenly, the lake didn't feel peaceful anymore. Cars stopped mid-park, fishing rods wavered in the hands of confused guests, and laughter froze into silence. Karen's face went red instantly, a mixture of disbelief and fury. Her voice cut across the water, sharp and insistent. "You can't do this. I have rights." She rushed forward, phone raised like a weapon, her guests shifting uneasily behind her. Some whispered, some filmed, but all of them knew the tension was thick enough to touch. She ranted about the HOA, threats flying fast, promises of cops and arrests before the sun went down. But I stayed calm, arms crossed, letting the storm of entitlement rage at me without flinching. Her guests tried to intervene. One laughed nervously. "Just let us out," but she snapped at him, as if anyone challenging her authority was committing a crime. Every accusation, every barked command, revealed more about her than the situation. She believed control could be taken with a scream, that a title could bend reality, that appearances could hide lies. Minutes passed, each louder than the last. Karen put the phone on speaker, calling for the authorities in a way that made everyone hold their breath. Her words were meant to intimidate, but the longer she spoke, the more her cracks showed. Guests shifted, some uncertain, some hesitant, their trust in her authority fading. And then they arrived. Two men in black SUVs, badges glinting in the sun, authority projected with every step. Karen's smirk widened. She thought she had won. But appearances can be deceiving. As the taller man barked orders, a flicker of doubt crossed his face the moment I asked a simple question. "Which department?" Half a second of hesitation. Enough for me to realize that the tide had already begun to turn. My hand moved slowly to my pocket, not in fear, but in preparation. Recording. Proof. Patience. Karen jumped in, frantic, commanding, desperate. Her words collided with hers, trying to assert dominance over people who no longer seemed fully on her side. Guests whispered, shifting between fear and disbelief. She was loud, controlling, certain she had the law and the lake on her side. But slowly, imperceptibly, the reality of the moment started to crumble her armor. Then, just when the tension felt unbearable, a phone buzzed. The taller man's expression changed, panic creeping in as the truth he hadn't checked came to light. Karen noticed, too, her confidence flickering. She looked from the men to me, to the lake, to the gate, the world she thought she controlled. And in that instant, everything she relied on, the yelling, the fake authority, the entitlement, began to unravel. The calm before the storm, the pause where every second stretched too long, left everyone at the lake holding their breath. What came next would decide everything. Whose power would truly stand, whose truth would finally be seen, and whether justice could be claimed quietly in the midst of chaos. The real patrol car rolled down the dusty road, lights flashing slow and steady, cutting through the heat and tension. Karen's face froze as the uniformed officer stepped out, calm, precise, and unshakable. She pointed at me, voice rising, trying to reclaim authority she didn't have, but her words hit empty air. The lake held its breath. The guests shifted, some packing up, some still recording, all watching as the illusion of power began to crumble. Karen's two enforcers, the fake cops, straightened, badges gleaming, trying to maintain control. But their confidence faltered the second the officer glanced at them. The uniform alone carried weight they couldn't fake. His eyes scanned the scene, the locked gate, the questioning stares, the proof of ownership lying in my hand. He asked one simple question, slow and deliberate. "Ma'am, do you own this land?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Words failed her. She faltered, her smirk gone, replaced by shock and panic. She had relied on yelling, threats, and appearances, but the truth hit harder than any confrontation. The authority she wielded so carelessly dissolved in seconds, leaving her exposed, powerless, and furious. I handed the officer the property documents and the phone recording, evidence she couldn't deny. Silence hung over the lake, broken only by her sputtering attempts to argue, threats that no longer carried weight. Every guest could see it. The real power belonged to truth, to legality, to patience, not entitlement or volume. The fake cops stepped back, realizing their act had no ground. Karen's anger, once deafening, faltered into stammered words, her authority evaporating before everyone's eyes. And in that moment, the lake no longer belonged to fear or intimidation. The tension that had gripped the morning snapped, leaving clarity in its place. The battle for control, for perception, for respect, had reached its peak, and the outcome was undeniable. The lake finally returned to its quiet rhythm. Karen was gone, escorted away by the authorities, her voice reduced to stammers that no one listened to. Her guests trickled out, some shaking their heads, some still filming, realizing they had witnessed more than just a confrontation. They had seen entitlement and false authority crumble under truth and patience. I stood by the locked gate, the gentle splash of water against the shore reminding me that some battles are won not with anger, but with calm, preparation, and proof. For years, people had assumed they could push, yell, or intimidate to bend reality. That day proved otherwise. Ownership, respect, and justice aren't given. They are shown, quietly, firmly, and without compromise. It wasn't just about the gate, or the lake, or even Karen. It was about a pattern repeated across communities everywhere. Assumptions, entitlement, and the misuse of authority often silence those who have every right to stand their ground. And yet, when truth meets courage, even the loudest voices fade. As the sun dipped low, painting the water gold, I realized the lake had become more than private land. It was a testament to patience, proof, and the quiet strength it takes to face injustice head-on. The lesson hung heavy in the air. Power is not about shouting the loudest or demanding respect. It's about standing firm, legally, morally, and unshakably, even when no one else believes you can. And so the question remains. How many more lakes, neighborhoods, and communities are waiting for someone to quietly stand, to let the truth speak louder than entitlement? How long will injustice go unchallenged before we recognize who really holds the power? Because the world doesn't change with noise alone. It changes when the quiet prove, beyond doubt, that justice is not a privilege. It is a right.